Hi everyone. So I'm Tara. I'm a software engineer at FutureLearn. So if you don't know about FutureLearn, we're a social learning company. We're enabling online learning through conversation. And before FutureLearn, I was a graduate software engineer at Marks and Spencer. So the whole of the junior part of my career kind of happened while I was on that graduate scheme. But obviously when I say junior, it doesn't really just mean junior. Depending on where you work, it has different titles, and if you're lucky, you don't even have a specific title. You're just an engineer like everybody else. So I wanted to do this talk because I got really confused by the whole process of how I could show that I was making progress in my career. Like, was I ready to make a formal leap from junior to mid-level engineer? What did that even mean? How was I supposed to do it? So I thought I'd kind of share what I've learned along the way for other people and talk about what we can do as juniors and supporters as well to help junior developers get on to the next stage in their career. So we can tackle this obviously from both sides, but let's start with junior developers. I think one of the most important things that we can be doing as junior developers is working on ways that we can start to stretch ourselves. So I always actually do an internal groan when I hear someone tell me, oh, you've got to stretch yourself, you've got to push yourself. I'm like, well, no, that just means I've got to do something I don't want to do. I'm going to find it uncomfortable, but it is a necessary evil. For me, that was public speaking, or basically any type of general communication. You should have seen me in stand-ups or sprint reviews. Like, it was really awkward. But the whole process of putting myself out there little bit by bit made that prospect a little bit less terrifying each time. But yeah, you can do lots of things to stretch yourself, and don't just restrict it to technical or programming aspects, because at the end of the day, you can be the most technical person in the world, but without your communication or softer skills, then you're not going to be able to communicate with your team, for example. One graduate that I used to work with while I was at Marks and Spencer, they said they knew that they were moving out of that junior developer mindset when they could start teaching people in their team things. And teaching in itself is a really crucial skill that we kind of expect from senior engineers or tech leads, but we don't have to wait until we've gotten more experience to start practicing this. So I got involved in Code Bar, and that itself is a great way to improve your own knowledge and confidence while supporting a new person in their new career goals. And I also found that when I was helping somebody that was completely new, I knew so much more than I thought I did. I was like coming out with answers that I didn't even know I had. But that simple act of like helping a completely new person put an image tag on their page and then thinking it's complete magic, it's such a good feeling. So I definitely recommend helping out at organisations like Code Bar and coaching at those kind of places, because it's great for them and it's also great to improve your skills. And a great way to check that you're stretching yourself the right amount is by thinking about it in terms of these zones. So starting in the middle, this is your comfort zone, and everything in here is like day-to-day activities, things that you do, but you don't learn very much from this area. So it's an essential place in terms of feeling calm and reflecting. But if you want to be developing your skills, what you want to be doing is moving out into the stretch zone. So literally stepping out of your comfort zone. So everything in here includes activities that challenge you personally, but that don't overwhelm you. So this could be something you've never ever done before, or it could be a completely old activity that you do all the time, but you're doing it in a completely new way. And the idea is that obviously it doesn't feel comfortable, but that act of going and doing something new helps you develop and you're learning something different. But you can go too far with this, so ideally you want to avoid this zone. This is the panic zone. So yeah, if you feel like this is too far basically. And how to tell, so if you imagine yourself doing that activity, if you think about it, like you've got a few butterflies in your stomach, but you can still do it, then you're probably comfortably in the stretch zone. But if you imagine yourself doing that activity and you like want to throw up, fall on the floor, then yeah, maybe not today, because that's in your panic zone. And it is worth saying that just because something's in your stretch zone today doesn't mean it can't be in your comfort zone tomorrow. And just because something is in your panic zone today doesn't mean that it won't move into your stretch zone next month or next week. Because as the more you develop your skills, the more you become more comfortable with some new things. So I think one of the other ways, kind of related to this, that junior developers can start to be moving on to the next stage in their career is thinking about ways that they can make a change in their wider business. And this is when you come across something that as a junior you find like a little bit annoying and you think something could be done about this. So it's probably unlikely that you're in a company that this doesn't happen. And it can be anything from a small technical issue or a massive non-technical issue. For me, I wanted to work on getting rotations in the graduate scheme that I was on. So I was a front-end developer for 12 months of the graduate scheme, and I thought it would be really cool if we could try different areas of the business. So I worked with my other grads and the engineering managers to get this process happening, and that happened for the following year's grads. But I think absolutely, if you get a chance to make a change or see a chance to improve something, you should fix it. In fact, you should fix all the things. But seriously, it's hard to do depending on how much you've learned, because for the first 3 to 6 months on my grad scheme, I was trying so hard to figure out what the heck was going on. I was absorbing all this new information being in a brand new, really big business, that I didn't really have that much time to think about what was annoying or what could be an issue that could be fixed. But as you get into your role, as you get used to where you are, you start to pick things up that you can make a change with. And I would definitely recommend going out and making the workplace a better place, because it's not just good for you, it's also good for the people that you work with. And it's also a great extracurricular activity when you're going and talking about that next stage in your career. And it's also worth saying that you don't have to do this alone. Raise it with team managers, mentors, your colleagues, and make that change together. So one of the final things that I wish I had done more as a junior developer is working on gathering evidence as I had them. So this is really easy if the company you work at has a career ladder in place, because you can match the skills that they set to different levels of engineer with examples of where you pick them up or you've learned them. But if you don't, just think of some skills that kind of go well across lots of different businesses. So what are your programming skills like? Have you got any examples of where you've either learned a new programming language or implemented something really cool? Or what are your communication skills like? Have you got examples of how well you're communicating within your team or with the wider technical team? Are you proactive? Are you going out and doing different things that are a little bit outside of your role but also great for the team that you're working in? And have you got examples of these? And the same for how well you are at giving and receiving feedback or showing good teamwork. And on the flip side of that, how well are you at working independently? So once you start to get examples for these areas, just keeping a track of them in something like a Trello board or a Google Doc is what I had, or bullet journaling. It's good for you to look back on, and as you start to see them add up, it's a really good confidence boost. And at the same time, again, it's also good when you go into interviews and meetings and you have this document to refer to of all the amazing things that you've been doing. But that's a lot of advice for juniors. What about supporters? How can we be encouraging and uplifting the juniors that we're working with? Well, I think one of the important things that we can be doing is just investing some time. Having a junior can affect the productivity in your team, but we're making a worthwhile investment. The point is we want them to upskill to a point where they can be really independent and working as part of their team on their own. So spend time developing their strengths and weaknesses, getting to know them, pairing sessions, for example. But pairing sessions is something that can be done really badly. I've had not the best experiences with pairing in the past. I once fell asleep in a pairing session with someone. It was only for a second, and I woke back up and looked around, realised where I was, saw that they were still looking at the screen, typing stuff away, explaining things to me that I wasn't really understanding. But obviously that is not a good interactive pairing session, and obviously I wasn't taking anything in. So if you're somebody that's supporting a junior developer, give them the keyboard, let them drive, and let them go and learn at a pace that's suitable for them. Because once you put the keyboard in front of them, they're immediately more engaged. They have to figure stuff out for them, and if you let them figure that stuff out, it's really useful in terms of making sure that you're developing at a pace that's suitable for you. But also ask questions that check in on their understanding. So instead of asking closed questions, did that make sense? And they say yeah, because what else? Instead, ask them if I moved that line of code down to the bottom of the function, what do you think is going to happen? If I run the tests against this function, what do you think is going to happen? You'll get a better understanding of where they're at and if they're following along. And if you find that there are gaps, that you can go back and help explain things a little bit clearer. And learning in this kind of way will go both ways. So not only will the junior you're helping learn, but the supporter that's supporting the junior will also start to learn more leadership skills and teaching skills, and it's great for both of you. You find that working with junior developers, their lack of familiarity in the system and the code base, that they have completely fresh ideas, that's some of the things that more experienced people would not even have thought of. I also think it's worth creating opportunities for junior developers. So once you started to get to know them, you started to get to know their strengths, their weaknesses, you can start to create opportunities for them to develop the places where they find challenging. So one of the things I did was a thing called living objectives. So you'll find that in businesses, you usually have an annual performance review, and you set some objectives, and you'll come back to it in a year and see how you've been getting along. But as a junior developer, you're learning so much so quickly that it doesn't really work so well. So this is what my living objectives looked like when I first started out as a graduate. Around the outside is the things that I thought were important to my role. And then the orange shape is my goal in each of those areas. So I wanted to be amazing at JavaScript and CSS, but as a front-end developer, I thought I didn't need to think so much about back-end engineering at the time. And then the shape in the middle was just my confidence level in each of these areas. So I was really wanting to improve my communication skills, writing tests. I thought I was okay at JavaScript, but obviously saw some room to improvement. And when you start working with your junior and you see something like this, you know what areas it'll be good to focus on. So you can prioritize things that are really important to their role, like JavaScript, for example, but then you can also prioritize areas that you think they're not as confident in. So my engineering manager set up some time in an engineering catch-up for me to talk about how I found learning ES6. So I had time to learn ES6 and also practice speaking and presenting. So as you get to know the junior you work with, it's really great to create opportunities for them to develop the skills that they find challenging. And another really important area for supporters to be doing for juniors is just giving them some regular feedback. And this is something I wanted the most because it's just really helpful for me to see where I'm at and how I can be improving. So this can be anything from a quick one-liner like that pull request you wrote was really, really good, or that approach you took was really well written, or it could be a full-blown written report on all the things that you're doing amazingly well on, or things that you can be improving. Another grad that I worked with, they said that they just didn't feel like they were at the mid-level point. They wanted confirmation from the people around them. And I think that just shows how important it is from lots of points of views. It's really hard to see as a junior developer how well you're doing when everyone around you kind of seems to be like they know everything. Okay, so I covered quite a few points there. If I do a quick recap, so I think juniors should be looking at ways that they can be stretching themselves and improving and developing your own personal skills. I think also juniors, you can be looking at ways that you can make a change in your wider business, whether that is through something small, something massive, something technical, something completely non-technical. And also start to just gather evidence of all the amazing things you're doing, whether that's on Trello or bullet journaling. And then to the people that are supporting junior developers, I think it's important that you just invest some time to help them develop. Create opportunities for them to start improving the areas that they find challenging. And also provide some regular feedback so they know if they're doing well, if they're on the right track, or if they can be doing something to improve. So the final quote from a graduate that I used to work with who just said, you know what, I don't think you'll wake up one day and realise you're not a junior developer anymore. And she is so right. Myself, I never really came to the conclusion that I wasn't a junior anymore. That never really happened. I mean, if we were doing things right, we should always be a junior at something. But for me, I just managed to have enough examples against a mid-level role that I got, and that kind of made the transition real. So to junior developers, I definitely say that you should go out and get that promotion for yourself. You go out and develop your personal goals at a time frame that suits you, but absolutely don't worry about it because you're doing amazingly well. Thank you so much.